Hi everyone, welcome back to Film Ranks. Today I'm going to talk about some of my personal favorite anime in the action genre and why these animes are so good in my opinion. So just to name a few, I'm going to talk about One Piece, Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Solo Leveling. And these animes are all interesting in their own regard. And today I'm going to answer the video's question: should you watch One Piece? And the easy answer is yes. If you're into anime and you're familiar with One Piece or have already seen episodes of One Piece, I would say keep going. I think it only gets better within the higher episode mark. Um, for anyone who doesn't know One Piece, it's an anime about pirates. It has a lot of fantasy elements. We have pirates with these things called devil fruit powers. So it's basically like a real fruit, but it gives you a superhuman ability like you would see in basically like characters from Marvel movies like Mr. Fantastic, which is the power that Luffy has, was like stretching his body like rubber, and it's called the gum gum fruit. And that's basically like, what I think of. Was another sort of character that's similar, and there's other characters with more like devil fruit powers. We also have Ace, who has basically the fire devil fruit, basically able to control flames like the Human Torch, but isn't the Human Torch. It's still different. So you still see differences, even though they have powers that you would see from characters in Marvel movies. And it's all within the world of pirates, and you have all kind of characters with the show, like even fish like people. You might think of Pirates of the Caribbean if you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, but I think this anime is much interesting in its own way. Obviously, because it has a huge potential to do a lot of different things. I think that the most different, I think the most unique thing that the show has done was introduce characters like Frankie, because, spoiler alert here, Frankie is a character that is like, he comes in later into the show, not that much later, but like noticeably, like almost halfway into 1,000 episodes. It's like he's one of those characters that you notice that is a lot different compared to most. And he's a cyborg. In a world of pirates, you would probably never think of a cyborg. And to add on to that, we also have Chopper, who is a reindeer that's also a doctor. So he's the medic of the team, but that's like crazy talk. So a lot of fantasy elements, of course, just with that. um that's probably the biggest spoiler I was gonna give, but if you already seen One Piece, it's no biggie. I'm just gonna say like a spoiler alert. And yeah, like, definitely spoilers. um but yeah, that's probably the biggest spoiler I'm gonna mention was in this video. So I would say, yeah, like, this is a very interesting anime. We have very interesting characters. um I don't really want to get into spoilers. That's the problem I have with every video I make. Like, I want to recommend shows and movies to you guys, and I don't want to ruin everything, because I want people to be able to enjoy what I'm recommending, or at least talking down a little bit about, just so that there's something more to enjoy than have the whole thing revealed, you know? Um, it's kind of more interesting for someone to I don't know, see something for themselves instead of being spoiled everything. And that's what I try to do with this channel. I just try to just talk a little bit about something, give an overview and some opinions, and then my overall rating, like what rank does this deserve. And with One Piece, I think it's a very unique anime. One of the few, well, the only one actually that has almost 1,400 episodes and a very high caliber show. Very unique. Um, I think this show deserves a 9 out of 10, honestly. Even to get into numbers like that was an anime is so mind blowing. And you know what? I think it's more like a 9.5. I'm gonna give it a 9.5. A 10 out of 10 is too good, I do get annoyed by a lot of the recaps, and that's something I really don't enjoy about the show. I dislike recaps with a passion, but almost everything else is pretty worthwhile. And I'm not going to say every episode is good either. There's going to be episodes that really drag on and feels like some of the problems could have been solved in fewer episodes. But that's as far as what I'll be able to criticize in the negative. Maybe some character flaws that I definitely don't like Nami being extremely greedy. But they are pirates, so it wouldn't really be a show about pirates if everyone was so kind and endearing and superheroes. And the MCU, like, they're not the Avengers. Even if they have powers that rivals what the Avengers can do, that's not what the show is about. It's about pirates. And you have very unique pirates that may not make sense for the show, but makes it a lot more interesting to watch. And it's fantasy, so it doesn't have to make sense. That's the whole point. It's playing with an imagination and seeing how far it goes. So that's what the show really is, you know. And aside from One Piece, I did want to talk about two other animes that I've been meaning to bring up quite a while. The first one is Dragon Ball. I've been meaning to talk about Dragon Ball forever, you know. And in short, this is one of my childhood animes that I highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, and of course if you like anime and action and martial arts, it's definitely a very good fantasy martial arts type of anime. I guess, if you're into fantasy, you'd really have to be into fantasy, I guess, to be interested in these shows, because I think there's a big separation from enjoying things that are like live action and non-fictional, and then being into things like superheroes and anime. So Dragon Ball is one of the best animes in my opinion. I know I just talked about One Piece and gave it a 9.5, but I just think that Dragon Ball is the one that started for me, and I had almost no issue with the anime. I think there was so many great characters. And that show for me is a 10 out of 10. Discounting Dragon Ball GT, I did not like GT as much, so that one probably gets an 8. But I feel like Dragon Ball has been a 10 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed the fights thoroughly. Even more so watching the old Dragon Ball where Goku's a kid, and then Dragon Ball Z where it all started for me. Dragon Ball Super was the highest peak of the fights that I was seeing was in the show. And I know there's other like other things like Dragon Ball Heroes and stuff like that, but you know, for me, it really stopped at Dragon Ball Super. I didn't watch a whole lot of GT. I watched certain episodes. I watched many episodes out of order. That's what I'll say. But yeah, I didn't see it like chronologically, so I don't think I will. I didn't really like the style, and that's why I don't watch other Dragon Ball series that you know isn't as captivating as like Dragon Ball Z or Super. Like if it's not like that, I'm not gonna watch it. But it's a great anime. I highly recommend it. It's it's really like, how do I say it? It's like if you're into like martial arts again, fighting and action and characters that can basically shoot beams and fight like Superman and nearly destroy the planet with almost every fight, I think you will like it. I honestly really do think you will if you're into that type of stuff. Which also brings me to Naruto. Um, Another anime that I've mentioned a little bit before in this channel. Why I want to talk about it is because I think for me, what is good about Naruto is that it's another character, specifically Naruto, who is again a stereotypical main character who kind of likes common sense in a lot of areas, but is very powerful. Um, you know, like an extremely powerful fighter. Um, you know, possesses a lot of strength, able to hold his own within the show and most villains. Um, and you see growth, you know, between the character. You also see that was, of course, Dragon Ball. And the same thing was One Piece. You just see an evolution of these characters over time. They may not change in personality, but just in how they are committed to being the most powerful or getting through these difficult challenges, which is how I would like describe all of the animes I just talked about. It's like becoming the greatest at what they set out to do, no matter the challenge. So Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. Goku wants to be the best fighter in the world. Naruto wants to be the most powerful ninja in his world, you know? Uh, so you see all of those arcs and you see how they evolve into the person that they want to become at the end of their road. And that's what's interesting about all of these animes I just talked about. I didn't give a rating to Naruto, so I would say it's like a solid 9 out of 10. All right, Naruto's a 9 out of 10. One Piece is a 9.5 out of 10. Dragon Ball is a 10 out of 10 for me, you know. And because I'm still pretty early into One Piece, it may just turn into a 10 out of 10 just because I really do like most of it so far. So yeah, you know, biases can change. So yeah, I really do like these sorts of animes. I hope in future animes there's male characters who have a little bit more of like intellect, I would say. Like these characters, like my biggest thing is like just give them some more knowledge, you know, just let them have critical thinking. Like just for the sake of it. Surprisingly, there are episodes where characters like even Naruto is being able to do things that require strategy and critical thinking. Um, you know, the same thing with Goku. He has his moments, but it's like they mostly have battle IQ over just like things that require more thinking, like a plan that's written out before just going into a fight, you know? That's my only thing. Other than that, you know, these characters aren't dumb as rocks. They're just like not well rounded with knowledge. And that's the only thing I would wish for a character in the future. And you know, well, actually, there is. Um, I've been meaning to talk about Solo Leveling, and that is one anime where I truly believe that that character, you know, he may not be all that powerful to begin with, but he gets so powerful. He is a very witty guy that's like introverted and is really cool. So actually, I am wrong. That's one anime that's proven me wrong and broken that shell of stereotypes. So if you haven't seen Solo Leveling, also check that out. That deserves a 10 out of 10. And with that, I've just talked about 4 animes when I really just meant to talk about One Piece. So yeah, go watch these anime. Go watch these shows like a true anime fan. Just go watch these shows like a true anime fan, and you won't be disappointed, especially if you love action. And yeah, Solo Leveling will definitely like blow your mind with how great these fights are and all these sort of like action adventure type of things with like technology. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about that show. And I think even with a small episode count, it did so much. So go check that out. Can't say enough good things about it. And all of these animes are really good in their own regard. So yeah, I've said enough. And thank you again for watching. And I hope to make more episodes on this channel. Peace.